Welcome to White Church Elementary School in urban Kansas City, Kansas. This corner of metropolitan Kansas City happens to be located in Wyandotte County, the third lowest income county in the United States. Children and families in the inner city neighborhoods that make up Kansas City, Kansas face enormous day-to-day challenges at home, in their communities, and at school. What is different about White Church is that teachers are teaching all children in ways that all are learning. Staff at the school believe they are responsible for and contribute to high achievement for all students. That the staff have had many student successes without a whole lot of resources. And what resources they do have are merged and allocated and reallocated based upon student performance data to support targeted students' needs. What is remarkable is that all school settings are used for instruction, so no one is isolated or singled out. That they have created structures and set aside time for daily and weekly learning opportunities. What is also remarkable about White Church is that they have embedded and integrated district initiatives into a comprehensive reform process. In many settings, whether urban, suburban, or rural, schools have become fragmented. Many different programs exist, targeted only to specific groupings of students who are determined to be eligible. Special education is an example. What if we could find a way to harness and coordinate all programs and services available to a school so that all the students could reap the benefits of each? At White Church Elementary School in the Kansas City, Kansas School District, just such an approach is being implemented and tested. The approach is called the School-Wide Applications Model, or SAM for short. Developed by Wayne Saylor at the University of Kansas Beach Center and Blair in Oakland, California. SAM is being field tested in schools in Kansas and in Northern California. In the new age of school accountability, stresses on schools are enormous. White Church's students reflect the ethnic diversity of most schools in urban America. But even so, the University District Partnership team saw no reasons why White Church students can't perform at or above state pupil averages. But to accomplish this feat, significant structural changes were needed. SAM approaches this task through 6 guiding principles. 1. General education guides all instruction. 2. All resources are coordinated to benefit all students. 3. Data-driven, problem-solving systems characterize schools. 4. Social development is part of the curriculum. 5. Families and communities are partners in the process. 6. District support assists the process. Let's consider how each of these works at White Church. To implement a school-wide applications model, a school must first serve all of its students. Students, for example, with disabilities are not sent off to other schools for categorical groupings. Going even further, students are not categorically grouped within the school. There are no special classes, for example. All settings at White Church Elementary are inclusive for all students. Finally, general educators guide the process. Special educators and other support teachers assist the general education teacher to support students with special needs.
I think that one principle that is really highlighted at White Church is the fact that general education guides all students' learning. The general ed teacher is out and out every child's teacher. So the child is in the teacher's classroom and they receive supports within that classroom. It is not that the identified student is the special ed teacher's responsibility. The special ed teacher is a support to help the general ed teacher accomplish the goals that we have for that child.
All of us work together and all of us work as a team because all of us are responsible for the scores, all of us are responsible for the kids, every single kid's education, not just the classroom teachers.
So that is something that has really evolved. I think when I came, as I said, there was a huge commitment to doing that, but the expertise wasn't developed within the entire staff so that they were very reliant on the special education teacher to come in and kind of have the answers. And I think that that has really evolved, you know, some teachers ahead of others because they've had more experiences with it. But teachers now are becoming more adept at individualizing for every student, and that's regardless of disability or an identified student having an IEP, because in a lot of cases it's not the students with the IEPs who need the most individualized instruction. And so I think that that's somewhere that we have come a long way within the past 8 or 9 years, is that we look at kids.
Our academic standards are based on the state of Kansas benchmarks. So what we do is the same goal as all the states in Kansas kindergartens. The standards are fairly high, I believe, for the kindergartners, and we try to meet those by doing as much individual work as we can with the children.
We don't look at identifications, we don't look at special accommodations. We do what a child needs more now, regardless of whether they're identified or if they're in a classroom that gets a special education teacher coming into the room to support it. We're able to identify needs and address those.
The way that I differentiate instruction for students, especially like during center time, is that I started out with my standards and benchmarks, but then I look and see what each child will be able to accomplish.
In the year 2000, we had 29% of our students scoring proficient or better on the Kansas State Math Assessment. We knew that wasn't good enough. And one of the biggest changes that we've made has been in our curriculum. The district has adopted the new Math Investigations curriculum, which has helped. But then we also needed to take a look to see what our focus needed to be to get students ready for the assessment itself. Last year we did some intensive study of which units we should teach that would be most effective in getting students ready, and also taught math a couple of different ways throughout the day to try to address different learning styles. And we saw a big increase with our students scoring 67% proficient on the math assessment. So then we started planning at the end of last year for this school year, so that when students came into 4th grade this year, we were focused and ready to address math needs across the day in a variety of ways. Really worked with students doing different types of math. In addition to Math Investigations, we worked on problem solving, we worked on computation skills, and one of the biggest things that we did was implement a math club, where students got to stay after school 2 nights a week. The 4th grade teachers and the special ed teacher volunteered their time. A group of 5 of us stayed after school and worked with students on extension activities in the different areas of math, and really just worked on making sure that they felt like mathematicians, felt like they knew what to do with math. And those efforts that we made have really paid off, because our preliminary results on the Kansas Math Assessment shows that 90% of our students were proficient or above, and we had 0% of our students score unsatisfactory on that assessment this year. So, and that includes all of our 4th grade students. So we're very excited about that. Feel like we've got a good handle on how to put a focus on our math instruction.
When it's something they're interested in and it's engaging, they don't spend a lot of time worrying about, you know, who's got their tool. They want to find out what they're going to be, you know, discovering from the experiment. The kids who have a lower reading ability, they're not singled out. They're just with the rest of the class. They don't feel like they're you know, left out. They have everything they need in front of them. And so anytime they have a question, it's not, everybody has questions in the science kind of active engagement thing. It's my expectation that they will learn what they need to learn just from being engaged with the activity and what we talked about. I mean, they have several questions that are similar all throughout the thing, but the expectation is at the end of the unit, when we do the assessment, that they will have learned enough about it to be able to give me their own written response.
They're not letting me do anything.
Oh, you know what is good? It's good that you guys went ahead and set up more, because we only had one set up, so that's great.
What's the circumference?
The circumference? The picture shows you. You want to tell them? Okay, go ahead.
All students participate in all school activities. At White Church School, truly, no child is left behind. Creative grouping arrangements within classes allow students to participate in the instructional side of the equation as well as in the learning process. Peer tutorial arrangements, for example, facilitate inclusive processes beneficial to mastery-level students, as well as those in need of intensive support.
8 or 9 years ago, a teacher had a class of 20 students, and those 20 students were the responsibility of that teacher. And that is definitely not the case today. Today, we use every support person that we have in every possible way, creatively, to say the very least. But when we had a student who wasn't being successful in guided reading, we had to find something for him to do that he could be successful at during that time. The school secretary heard the conversation and jumped in and chimed in that she would be willing to read with the student for 30 minutes a day if that would help. And so that was a great solution to a problem that really we were having a hard time finding a solution for. Earlier this year, we had another student who needed extra support because he wasn't being successful in a 70-minute guided reading block. It was too much structure, just wasn't working out, and so we searched for an alternative for him as part of his positive behavior support plan. Mrs. Mealy offered to read one-on-one with him for 30 minutes at the beginning of guided reading to help him get settled in, and that was extremely successful. Now we've branched out where she's working with a couple of other students who just need some extra supports. And so reading can occur anywhere, even in the teacher's lounge.
Into bed.
Very good.
Using our speech-language pathologist, her attitude towards working with all students has really helped a lot because in her mind, she is here as a support for general education, which is what the purpose of her job is. And so she sees going in and working with students on comprehension skills as one of the biggest pieces of her job. And so that has really helped us work with teams to lower the class sizes for the students who need the most supports in reading comprehension and language, which is her arena. And so that has really helped teachers support those students. Another way that we configure classes and teachers to work with all students is through the way we have CALL structured right now. CALL stands for Kansas Accelerated Literacy Learning and is a program we started in the 1996-1997 school year as an early intervention program for students who are at risk of reading failure in first grade. Our goal was to catch them before they failed. We've trained all of our teachers in the CALL strategies so that they're all aware of reading development. They've all worked with first graders to see typical reading development. Now we can identify students who need extra support in reading. So like in Miss Harris's case, she's doing a CALL lesson with 2 of her own 4th graders who need extra work in decoding. While she does that, her students leave for a half hour and go to another classroom where they do word study, which is an activity that could be done with a larger group of students. So teachers are very aware of other students' needs. They know other students. Like there's not a student in 4th grade that the 3rd, 4th grade team doesn't know, so that they are able to work with any student on identified needs.
What if someone gets stuck on a word? What are you going to do, Marissa?
If they can't sound it out, you just have them sound it out for a little bit and then...
Are we going to blurt out the word? No. No, we're going to give them a chance to figure the word out, right? If they need some support or some suggestions of strategies, you can suggest strategies though, right? Right. Okay, so you're going to need to get your roll sheet out. And then I want the red group to go get your books and find your spot on the carpet.
In this class, we have several students with varying disabilities, and we have been able to support them through working together on writing lesson plans and writing the tests at different levels. So there might be 2 or 3 tests given on the same general idea, but with different tasks that they're being asked to do. For example, during literature circles, they are able to write their own questions and write their own summaries at their own independent levels. And so that way every student is able to participate in the literature circles and everybody's able to do the jobs at their own independent levels. Lucas has had several successes this year. Behaviorally, he has probably matured. His relationship with Miss Stanley has grown significantly throughout the year. He does not have to leave as often as he was at the beginning so that he doesn't yell. Brian has a lot of academic successes this year as well as behavioral successes. He has grown to being almost just barely below grade level this year, where at the beginning of the year we started significantly behind. So academically he has made several growths in reading and in his writing, and behaviorally he is on task, and we're not having to reward for being on task as often with him this year.
To achieve the kind of mutually respectful problem-solving orientation required to accomplish the systems change required of a school-wide applications approach, team structure at the site is essential. SAM requires a school leadership team to meet regularly, to set priorities, design action plans, and, most importantly, to assess progress through analysis of school-wide data. As we will see, White Church is a data-driven, problem-solving learning culture.
Well, thank you guys for being on time to our team planning today, like we have every week. We have a mighty hefty agenda today, so we better just jump right in.
I pulled the SRI scores off of the computer today, and the due date for those is May 25th. And what I pulled off was the students that are still not considered to be on grade level. So, Dana, I know you've been doing some things in your class to try to help students get boosted along, and maybe you could share some of those, and maybe we can make kind of a plan for some of our kids.
Basically, after I gave everybody the test, everybody took the test, I took the kids that had passed, and they started working on independent projects while I did a 50-minute lesson rather than a 25 or 30-minute lesson with.
What was the total number?
I counted 26. That's why I have 26 children. Okay, and we only have, if 25th is the deadline, we have a good week.
It sounds like a lot of these students need the smaller groups, but I was also going to say if we need to look at maybe combining kids a little bit so that if there's, 4 students who are between a 600 and 700, but they're in 3 different rooms, we could put them together to kind of meet that same need if there's students with like needs just for the week, just to try to do a last ditch. Another principle is that we're team-driven, data-driven, collaborative school. And we've really developed a lot over the years in working as teams. One of the main focuses that we had was arranging the environment, arranging the school day so that we could have collective responsibility and teams that could meet on a consistent basis. So that on at least one of those days they could meet to really talk about teams of kids. And so our 1st and 2nd grade team really started that process with their reading instruction. Because they do cross-room reading, they needed time to be able to talk and to know about all of the kids. And so they did lots of teaming there, looking at data. So that's where the data piece comes in. And a big piece of call is to have really specific data on each child so that we could see exactly where their breakdown in reading was or what successes they were having with reading. And so the call teacher really facilitated a lot of that in the beginning, especially the 1st year. But by the 2nd and 3rd year, we needed to expand that because the call teacher couldn't do it all on her own. So we started having team meetings even back then with the 1st and 2nd grade team really trying to learn how to use the data. And they've gotten very adept to the point where today we regroup students every 6 to 9 weeks using the data from running records and from observation about which area of reading they need assistance in. And they're able to flexibly group kids every 6 to 9 weeks using the data on their teams. And the 3rd and 4th grade has done a lot of that this year, looking at reading achievement. Our reading progress through the year for 3rd grade, because it's been a struggle this year, and Mrs. Riley couldn't be with us because she had to take the Gates McGinnity tests downtown, but hopefully we can kind of reflect across the year. So Dana, if you could start us out.
I tested my kids at the beginning of the year, and a lot. There was about 12, as I'm looking here, 12 or 13 that were below grade level from testing with the IRIs. And that didn't really concern me as much at first. I thought it's the beginning of the year, they just got back from the summer. You know, kids come back sometimes a level or so behind. But then when we got into December, and it was December, January, it was time to test again, I still saw that there were several kids, I would say over half, that were still below grade level. And usually at that point, I'm used to seeing some movement. And so since I hadn't seen any movement, I just started to become very concerned.
We are in the middle of a process of learning, but our school has really become a school focused on teaching and learning. We're starting to see great achievement because of that. Our reading program has really soared, and we've really gotten to the point where we can be very reflective about reading. Our students, in 96, 97, we had 77% of our students qualify for call, and we're to the point now where we might have 10 or 15% of our students qualify. And in first grade, for the past 4 or 5 years, we've had 90% of our students scoring at or above grade level by the end of first grade. And last year and this year had 100% of our students in first grade reach that level. So the focus has really helped us learn to be reflective, I think, is the biggest piece, and that teachers reflect and modify their instruction to be sure that all students are going to be reading by the time they leave first grade. In the year 2000, we had 29% of our students proficient or higher. We were still using our old math program, and we weren't very focused on that data. And so we've really since then looked at it and seen some great growth. We had one year where we had a dip. Our preliminary results show 90% of our student proficient on the Kansas State Math Assessment this year. And again, you go down and you look and you see students who know math in 4th grade. In 5th grade, they take the Kansas State Reading Assessment, and we've seen similar growth there. We have a much more focused awareness of the skills that our students need as readers in 5th grade. And so we've seen great gains in the number of students who are proficient and above in reading as well. As part of our whole transformation within our school, special ed has transformed as well to the point where it's not really about general education versus special education. It's about education. And in our school, we're working to educate all students regardless of need, regardless of the paperwork that is in place for the child, so that a child who is here every day doesn't know who is who in the crowd. We are just a community of learners here learning together. The teachers are learning, the students are learning, and we're learning how to work with each other.
One of the greatest challenges confronting urban educators is discipline. Children are expected to behave at school in ways that may well be very different from the cultural norms of their community and their homes. Children who cannot readily adapt to these different expectations are often labeled as behavior disordered and excluded from the teaching-learning process. Office discipline referrals, for example, can cost students many hours of valuable instructional time. But what if discipline were to be reconceptualized as a goal of the educational process rather than as a prerequisite to it? At White Church School, discipline is a pedagogical issue, and social development is a part of the curriculum. School-wide positive behavior support provides the means by which social development competencies are integrated into the curriculum of the school.
First of all, raise your hand if you can read the first sentence for us. Oh, if your eyes were up here, you would be able to have a chance on reading all the words.
We will be safe on the bus.
Boys and girls, you have 3 big rules for the Wildcat Way. I have them up here on your Wildcat paw. Let's read them together.
Be respectful, be a learner, be in control.
Another principle is that the school addresses proactively citizenship and positive social behavior. And PBS has really come into play there.
Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools has had a comprehensive school reform project underway for several years called First Things First. Beginning in 1999, the University of Kansas Beach Center on Disability formed a partnership with the school district to begin to address the social development needs of the students through positive behavior support as a way to enhance outcomes from the school reform effort. The school-wide applications model, SAM for short, was an outgrowth of the effort at White Church School to bring the principles of positive behavior support together with the special education inclusion program that was already well established. Dr. Amy McCart of the KU Beach Center has played an integral role in that process through her work with Nydia Riley, the principal at White Church.
PBS is essentially a comprehensive set of strategies intended to support students in a way that helps prevent problem behavior from occurring in the first place. We actively go in and support teachers and provide training and give them resources and tools to help them support students with other methods besides suspension and expulsion. Specifically at White Church, we've worked really hard with the teachers to get them very involved with the process of PBS and understanding all the components. There are three primary areas that we focus on when we're talking about PBS, and this school is excellent at implementing all three of them. We have universal support where we provide PBS to all students, every student in the building. We have group support where we look at targeted environments like the playground, the lunchroom, classroom settings, and we provide more intensive support for groups of students that may face some challenges. And then we have some individual students in this building, like in every building, that have significant problem behaviors, and we provide intensive support. So it's at those three levels where we come in and we do that intensive teaching, proactive strategies, redesigning environments, looking at ways to prevent problem behavior from occurring at each of those three levels. And you have to allow time for that to be absorbed. We were fortunate that Nydia came on board and was willing to support it right away.
Year 2 at White Church was really a growing year for us because when I came on board, I had to build relationships with the staff. I didn't really understand at the very beginning when I first walked into my office what PBS really meant and how much support it had. And so after speaking with Amy, PBS is more than just a program. It's a way of thinking. It's about relationships. It's about supporting students. It's about supporting staff, parents. And so I believe that when I came in. And so it fit right into my philosophy. And then I had to build relationships with the staff and see how they thought about children and interacting and positive. And they were doing that, but we had to make a commitment to do that. And so Amy began to be incorporated into our district school improvement plan, our Wednesday in-services once a month, and we paid and we planned and we talked about student behavior, but you can't really change student behavior until you change adult behavior. And so that was my focus, changing how the staff, how this building reflected about what was good for students.
We established a whole school motivation system to support what Nydia was just talking about that looked at the behavioral expectations and then reinforced the kids for following those expectations. So here at White Church it's called the Wildcat Wealth, and the teachers pass out Wildcat Wealth to anyone that they see following the behavioral expectations. So what universal support does for PBS is it provides a tool and a mechanism for teachers to be able to reinforce and recognize students when they are following those expectations that we want, whereas typically before they wouldn't have had those tools or opportunities available.
Another thing that we did on year 2, I believe that was very important, was that we established a PBS team that was a core of teachers that could support problem concerns that were happening in the classroom. They met after school and teachers could go to them and our parents or any staff member and discuss, and the child offer suggestions, give support. And so that was an informal way, because we do have a formal way with our student improvement team that addresses the concerns academically and socially of our students. But this was a quick support system that was in place. And so Amy worked with those teachers and she worked with the whole staff. We talked about how to analyze and look at behavior. you know, and not get personal with it. And so I think the PBS team that second year, launching that where teachers could go was very important.
Thanks, guys, for coming today to talk about Elijah. What we want to do is kind of review what's been working and what some of the challenges are and what we might be able to do to kind of help address some of the problem behaviors that we've been experiencing the last couple of days. And it looks like from the data that this is consistent with what you're saying, that the primary number of issues that he's having are still the classroom disruption. And it seems that those are all centered around this issue of no for the most part, or that seems like a catalyst. Is that pretty much the case? What about other ideas, other ways, other strategies that we might be able to use in the classroom that might help avoid this negative interaction pattern?
The other day he came in the room and we were talking, I don't know, oh, it was after reading, he came in. And I said, I've noticed that you don't like me to put my hand up like this and say stop. What would you rather me do? And he said, I want you to go like this. This makes me mad, but this doesn't.
Oh, that's good.
So I thought maybe we can work on that a little bit.
So you found a replacement behavior for yourself.
Yeah.
He was able to tell you what was bothering him, and you were able to say,
yeah,
let's do this instead. That's good.
Yeah.
That's
This
good.
doesn't make me mad.
The teachers here learned the language of behavior. They really did. They learned that it's a science and it's a way to approach supporting students just like you would academically. And all students have problem behavior. It's not about a child with a disability or a child with this concern or with that concern. It's all students have challenging behavior at one point or another.
Some of these students have been with us since kindergarten. One of those students is Stefan. Stefan came to school with lots of difficult behavior. Always knew he was a very smart kid, but just needed a little bit of extra support. So he went through the CALL program, learned how to read, no problems, but continued to have some difficult behavior to a point in second grade where it kind of came to a head with some behavior that really required some immediate action. Mom and Grandma both stepped into the picture at that point and worked with us to get him help. We developed a positive behavior support plan for him, really worked with him boosting his self-esteem and confidence, really giving him lots of praise, and then continuing to work through some of the things he was struggling with. And is now at the point where in 5th grade, he doesn't have any extra supports and is being very successful in school, is a member of the art club, staying after school, and is actually even being tested right now for a talented and gifted program. So he's had a lot of success as he gets ready to leave and go to middle school. Do you think you'll take the Wildcat Way with you as you go to junior high?
Yes.
How?
I keep it in my system, and I'll always remember to be a learner and be respectful and be in control.
The district's participation in this school-wide reform effort around positive behavioral support was one of providing pathways and avenues for it to be successful within the schools. We took away the stumbling blocks. We worked to provide the resources and the supports necessary for staff members and community members to work together to allow positive behavioral supports to be successful.
Some of the support we have gotten would be from Amy McCart, right here from KU. She comes in, she's our resource, she's our liaison really between the school and the district. And so she has spent a lot of time with us. The district has been supportive. They've started in the last couple of years that we've had PBS to broaden the base, to give more colleagues. I have more staff, colleagues that I can talk to about PBS and some of the implications of it in a building. And so but I think the main support is having someone who, like Amy there, the first couple of years, where she's phasing out and teachers are taking more ownership. The building we can implement PBS in this building without Amy as much. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we want to go, because we want to be able to have it sustain itself in our school.
Some of these other schools that are approaching us do not have funds, and we're providing supports in very different ways in those buildings. And the more energy that's created within the district, the less resources they need from the outside.
Kate's been supported very positively, during her 3 years here at the school. She started here in the 2nd grade and had gone through a lot of changes herself from kindergarten and 1st grade. So to come here and with the new implementing of the PBS system just was wonderful. And the support was great. The positive incentives definitely give her a reason to go down within herself and do the best that she can most of the time. Over the years, 3 years now, she's just flourished here. She's matured and she's become very helpful and she's become very positive, and of course she still has that 4th grade 9-year-old attitude sometimes, but she's really becoming quite a big girl.
We have evidence on a number of levels that the PBS is working across our district. At the district level, we've noticed a number of things in our pilot schools, the schools that we've started with. We've seen reduced office referrals. We've seen reduced suspensions in these buildings. We've seen the increase of academic time, time on task within classrooms, and time within classrooms for students. We've also seen an increase in academic scores on state assessments in those schools. We've done a lot of things to make that happen, but one of the most important things is having those students in the classrooms. Positive behavioral supports has allowed us to increase the in-class time for our students.
We try to reinforce the Wildcat Way in many ways throughout the building and in many environments. We talk about it in the cafeteria, in the hallway, in the bathrooms. We talk about it when we go to special events like field trips, and we like to have assemblies to reinforce the concepts.
When I was here last time, there was this kind of a way thing. Let's see, what was it? Way, something way. What was it? Wildcat Way. And that was some kind of the 3 things. Be something. Wait, what was it? Be respectful. Wait. Be respectful is the first one. Okay, what's the other one? What's another one? What was it? Be a learner. Okay, what was the third one? Be in control. Okay, so let me say them again. I can't remember them. I got a real short memory. Everybody say them together. The Wildcat Way is, what is it? Number 1? Okay. Woo! Okay, one more time. You got to say.
The reason for doing or implementing PBS in your school would be that it provides a framework for students and teachers to look at what they're doing and their behavior. It provides a framework for building communities. It provides a framework for inclusion, involving everyone in the family, so to speak. PBS allows you to change the climate of your school from one that is just focused on negative behavior and punishment to one that provides a positive environment with positive interactions that everyone is conscious of doing. It's not something you leave to chance. It's not a quick fix. There's going to be some difficulties around the way because you're changing philosophy, you're changing the way you look at yourselves. It's not always pleasant, but the benefits that you get from it, as an administrator, the climate of the school, the vision of the school rests on the principal. And so PBS provides that framework without having to go in 50 million directions, because you're actively looking at things that impact student behavior, teacher behavior, instruction. It has all the components to move the school to a place of excellence. PBS gives you an edge, but it is time-consuming, it's a commitment, and it's not always easy. The waters become very muddy a lot of times, and you have to be committed, because the staff at school, the teachers, the parents look to you as the administrator.
The bottom line on the impact of PBS on our school is probably the fact that students are able to spend more time on learning.
Not long ago, urban schools were places that families had come to resent and mistrust. Most of the communication was one way, from school to parent, and the news was usually depressing. Today, thanks in part to comprehensive school reform measures such as First Things First, the district-level reform process being implemented in Kansas City, parents are becoming re-engaged with schools in a climate of respect. In the school-wide applications model, schools engage in partnership arrangements with the families of the students. Education is framed as a shared responsibility. Successes are celebrated by both partners, and setbacks are no fault. At White Church School, family members feel welcomed by the school and ready to do their part to ensure student success.
The school has open boundaries and has relationships with the family members and with the community members. And when I think back to where we were at 8 or 9 years ago, we had a family liaison, and that was a nice role. But when I think back to what those families did when they came up to school, it was not involved in the process of teaching and learning. Now we have lots of parent volunteers. We would love to have more, but we have several parent volunteers who come up here, and when they're here, they're involved in the process of teaching and learning. So last year we had a grandmother who came up and worked with reading groups. This year we've got several mothers who are coming up, and they actually work with groups of students. They know where the students are at in their academic areas.
This school is not difficult to become involved with. All you must do is show a willingness, and all of the staff welcome any help and support that you can offer. I've never been told, no, you can't do something. I see the children progressing tremendously. A lot of differences since many years ago when I went to school here. You know, as you grow older, sometimes you feel like you're being taken out of the loop, and no one likes to feel that they're being taken out of the loop. And so I really enjoy feeling like I'm still at least partly in the loop. I enjoy the boys, watching them grow from 3rd grade to 4th grade and seeing how they mature, grow not only physically but in their knowledge and understanding. And I hear people say sometimes that, well, they aren't teaching the kids the way I was taught when I was a boy. And no, they're not. They really aren't. They're teaching them so much better. It's unbelievable. A good example of this is one day I brought a 7th grade math book that my wife had used when she was in 7th grade, and I brought it to lunch with me and showed it to the boys. And they're in the 4th grade, and there was virtually nothing in that book that they were not familiar with. So when I hear people say that the schools are not doing a good job, they can be ready for an immediate argument from me because I happen to know better.
There's another parent who comes in, and she comes in several days a week, and so she works with math groups during the center time in the classroom, and so she works with a variety of different kids on different skills according to their need, but knows where each child is at. And the teacher assigns those groups, but then she's able to work with them. She also goes into the computer lab and has been a great resource as far as helping students learn how to use programs like PowerPoint and some of those things that would be difficult to do with just the teacher in the classroom.
I guess the support that I would believe we get from the school in general, I think a lot of the activities that goes on the school, the skate parties. I know Isaiah was really happy even about the science project that they just did, and he's been talking about it for the last, I think it's been a week, 2 weeks now since the display out in the gym. I know coming into the school when we need to check on them or bring something up here, as you make your presence, you meaning one of us, make our presence known coming in here, that it's easy to maneuver around the school.
The ways that we felt supported, it was an open communication between everybody. They didn't hesitate to pick up the phone to call us, and we kept in direct contact. I think that's what helped a lot.
What's been exceptional for our children at White Church is the commitment of the teachers and the staff and the personal level to which it's taken. The teachers have supported Casey, and they came to Girl Scout functions and bought Girl Scout cookies, and they've come to games. The teachers always took it just a little step further and made my children feel welcome and belonged and not feel wrong because they had a learning disability. So when they left and went to other environments, they weren't ashamed or embarrassed to say, I can't read how I need to read, or I can't do this or that the way I should, because it was just part of who they were.
Every parent knows about the Wildcat Way. They know the expectations. They know the code of conduct. So that part of is in place. We're not exactly where we want to be there yet as far as having parents come in and be part of the PBS team, that we meet and talk about issues that are surrounding behavior here at school, but we're getting there.
Mrs. Hamrick is one of our parent volunteers that comes in and just supports some of the things that the teachers are working on in class. Right now, Marcel is working on stretching out words and writing, which is one of the things that they work really hard on in kindergarten. So Ms. Hamrick is able to come in and just back that up. Some of our other parent volunteers come in and help pull small groups to work on math skills and just spend time with the children. One of the struggles that we've had at White Church and that we are continuing to have is that we continue to lose supports due to funding. And that becomes a critical issue because as we strive to support each student, our resources are tight. And so we will continue to have to look for creative ways to solve those problems. And one of those ways to solve those problems, I think, is one of the things that we really want to work on, and that is involving the community and involving families more and more. We're going to need their support to be able to meet the needs of all of our students. So that is probably the biggest piece that we would like to develop in the next couple of years, is involvement with families, involvement with communities, really expanding our supports to families as well as expanding the support that families can offer us.
Like the schools themselves, large school districts are often segmented bureaucracies. Separate departments look after their respective programs and budgets, often in blissful ignorance of what is occurring in the department next door. The SAM process implies major systems change at the district level to support a fully unified context for learning in the schools. Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools is studying the White Church process carefully to see if such a major departure from traditional organization is truly justified. The district is well positioned to undertake this careful evaluation, however, thanks to a very advanced data-driven system in place in the district called Compass. This data analyzer provides access to a stream of data fields available from local school sites that can link specific processes or interventions at each site to changes in pupil performance at the site. Now that's accountability. If SAM processes are producing accelerated pupil progress, socially and academically at White Church, then expansion to other sites will soon follow. Just as school decisions are made by the site leadership team, systems change decisions at the district level are made by a district leadership team. The important thing in Kansas City is that important decisions are made on the basis of data, not a whim.
Our Board of Education and Superintendent have established 3 district priorities: the improvement of teaching and learning in all classrooms, the building of stronger relationships between adults and students in every classroom, and continuous improvement. A number of years ago, to support that, we found that teachers had a very difficult time acquiring information about our students. Something as simple as a phone number was very difficult for our teachers to acquire, to make a call home. We set out to develop a student data system that allowed teachers, principals, and administrators at the district level easy and quick access to student information. We started with demographics and then found the need for academic and then behavioral data. Out of those databases and that tool that we developed for classroom teachers, we then found the need to be able to analyze that data. Teachers and principals were asking for a system that they could bring the data up in graph form in a matter of minutes, to have the data real time at their fingertips.
Take a look at the data analyzer and see if the office referrals are increasing and what's going on and what might be causing it.
That's a good idea. We use the data analyzer to take a look at how we are doing in terms of student behavior. information that can be obtained from that includes looking at individual teams or small learning communities to see what type of office referrals that are coming to the office. In addition to that, whether or not they're repeat offenders and how many times. Is it the same teacher? Is it a certain day of the week, which is surprising when you take a look at that. And once looking at that data, then it's a matter of determining what are the biggest issues in the building, and then putting in some positive supports to try to decrease those, not only school-wide, but as well with the individual, so their individual supports. Using office referrals as a form of discipline is totally ineffective. It does not change behavior. And sometimes I feel that as adults, we have to change our behaviors in order to impact the behavior of the student. I've seen that happen too many times.
I really do think that a lot of our successes are because of the focus that the district has brought within the past 10 years. I think that 10 years ago, our school district was like a lot of other school districts where schools were sort of on their own to do what they wanted to do and to find the programs they wanted to do, and there was not a lot of focus in instruction and in the structure of our school. All primary teachers received district training in teaching guided reading to make literacy our focus. So that was kind of the start of the focused interventions. And so the intensity of that really allowed us to get a start. And then with that came the district support of First Things First. And that whole initiative that gave us some more structure to our program, set in place the fact that all students needed continuity of care, really pushed us into doing looping with all of our students and or multi-age so that every child was with a teacher for multiple years, helped us get some of the planning time that was so crucial. So helped us work to get common planning time. That's when we instituted the early release on Wednesdays so that we could have staff development. So some of those structural pieces that we couldn't have done on our own that let us grow into the role of teaching and learning. And then there's my role as the instructional coach. The instructional coach position was developed several years ago, probably 5 or 6 years ago. And when it started, it was a job that was shared among the school improvement facilitator is what they were called then. They traveled to several different schools to really look at implementation of the school improvement plan to try to start the focus on teaching and learning and to start the questions being asked. I think that one of the most important things to remember is that change doesn't happen overnight that is long-lasting and effective in the long run. The parts all work together, and we have to stay focused on the parts, but we also have to focus on the whole big picture.
Clearly, something is working very well at White Church School. These inner-city kids in a low-income area of Kansas City are not only exceeding the state average in indicators of academic performance, but are actively engaged in the learning process. Let's look again at the key features of SAM, the school-wide applications model, that make White Church Elementary a nearly unique case study in taking a very different approach to the organization and utilization of educational resources. First, all student learning is guided by general education. Schools serve all their students rather than referring some out to other places on the basis of specialized services. Special education and other specialized personnel support the general education teacher to serve all students, regardless of their unique needs. Second, all school resources are organized to support all students. Special education is provided in fully integrated arrangements so that general education students can derive incidental benefits from these supports. Third, the school has strong site-based management components that rely on team-driven problem-solving processes. Fourth, the school places strong emphasis on social as well as academic outcomes through the school-wide positive behavior support applications. Fifth, the school reaches out to the families of its students and to its community through active partnerships to enhance the teaching-learning process and to extend it beyond school boundaries. And sixth, the school is actively supported by its district to undertake the extensive systems change effort to operate SAM. A fully integrated school-wide applications model requires extensive new training and technical assistance support from the central office to be successful. And clearly, Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools has been there for White Church Elementary, its students, its teachers and administrators, its families, and its community.